Hello, everyone. I'm excited to do this. My first go around. I did a version of this class for the local New Haven public school teachers. So the national possibilities are exciting to me, connecting with folks from across the country. I agreed to do this because I'm excited about the possibility of this material reaching more students. I know what it means. I've seen on campus in public schools where I've gone to speak what it means for students to see this material in their classes. So I'm going to give you a little bit about the class, some of the things I talk about, thematics. I'm going to read a very boring course description that I will hopefully bring alive with some examples, right? So the course is Latina histories, cultures, and communities. That can go in a lot of different directions. Let me break that down. This course provides a critical overview of some of the central themes and issues that have shaped the experiences of Latinx populations in the United States. The main areas of inquiry that this course will address include U.S. Latin American relations. What's going down in Venezuela isn't a new foray for the United States in Latin America. We're going to think about those histories going back to the 19th century and how those 19th century histories can help us think through the present, right? Why have people migrated from Latin America to the United States in the first place? We have to go to the 19th century. We have to think about the relationship between the US and Latin America. To do that work, we're going to think very critically about bananas, right? You're going to be pretty horrified when you see how obsessed American culture was with bananas in the 40s. I'm going to show you some movies, and it's going to be there'll be a lot of laughs, but you're also going to be like, that's a lot of bananas. And it's a really good way into thinking about these histories, right? So we'll be singing banana songs and talking about the history of Chiquita Banana. In addition to the U.S. Latin American relations, we're going to be talking about the history of ethnic labels. Where do these ideas come from? Latino, Latina, Latine, Latinx, Hispanic. Where do these labels come from? How are they used? How has that changed over time? We'll talk about the role of politicians. We'll talk about the role of capital, making money, imagining a market, right? We'll talk about the formation of transnational communities and identities, right? How people remain in contact with countries in Latin America, how people move back and forth, and how that affects the United States, how that affects the country of origin. We'll talk about the politics of language and bilingualism, specifically through detours through the literary, which I'll get to in a little bit more in a second. We'll talk about the politics of race, class, ethnicity, gender, and sexuality, right? So we might read a graphic novel about a young queer Cuban woman who comes of age into her sexuality, thinking about her Cuban community in Southern Florida and also the politics of queerness in the 1990s, right? Specifically through Green Day's music, if that rings any bells for you going back. We'll talk about Afro-Latinidad, indigeneity within the context of Latinidad as well. Um, we'll talk about political and social movements, right? New York City, Puerto Ricans, Chicano movement in the Southwest, right? To talk about how communities have mobilized for rights, right? To demand rights. And we'll also look at media and popular culture. Some of you may have received Stephanie's emails asking, should Laguna teach a broad kind of Latinx studies class, or should he do the Bad Bunny class? Well, you're going to get Bad Bunny either way. So this class, I'll be also talking about music, popular culture. That's a big area of my teaching, and I'm going to say more about that in a second. Who is this class good for? Social studies, right? For those, I'm not a historian, but there's a lot of this work is historically grounded. I give historical context for understanding migration patterns. I give historical context for looking at particular forms of cultural production, right? The last time I taught a version of this class locally, a student wrote a unit on the U.S.-Mexico border, the history of the U.S.-Mexico border, right? Um, for those of you who are English and literary studies, language arts, right? There's going to be a lot of literature in this class. Short stories, novels, poetry. There's a novel that I really love that I think could be taught eighth grade and up, maybe, Under the Feet of Jesus by Elena Viramontes about farm workers in the Southwest, this young girl coming of age as a farm worker. Um, what else there? We can also talk about a novel called We the Animals by Justin Torres, right? We'll look at the relationship between activism and the literary imagination as well. Um, and finally, popular culture and music. So, maybe we watch West Side Story, maybe both versions. We have some time, right? We're gonna think about music specifically as a way to engage your students. Like, how can you meet them where they are, right? They're already listening to this stuff. They're listening to Bad Bunny. Maybe they're listening to salsa. How do you engage? Meet them where they are with something they're already excited about. The gift that I like to give students is the thing that they're obsessed with is a way to understand complex questions about migration, the evolution of musical genres, the evolution of communities and musical flows as a way to understand those movements, right? So maybe we talk about the history of reggaeton, which is a fantastic way to talk about migration within the hemisphere. All these popular culture, literary examples, I hope to offer in the class as a way to really engage your students with stuff that's gonna excite them. And obviously, I'm very interested in your interests, and I'm happy to shift things around in the syllabus so that we can get the kind of coverage needed so that you can speak to your kind of student constituencies.